Please don't shoot us. Go. Watch out! Watch out!
This is a test of the long-range acoustic device LRAD. 1, 2.
Alright, listen. There is so much more power in silence. There's so much more power. Y'all, if you got your signs, put your signs up. Hold your signs up. Hold your signs up. We are going to take a moment of silence. I don't want to hear nothing. If you need to pray, pray. We're going to take a moment of silence for everybody who has lost their lives. All the injustice that has been done. We're going to take a silence even for yourself. Let's take a moment of silence. Now, this is bigger than Little Rock. This is bigger than Arkansas. Alright, so we send a message not just for us. So if y'all want to sit down, if y'all want to sit in the middle of the street, if y'all want to put your hands up, if you want to hold your hands up, if you want to talk to your friends, let's practice some silence. Let's give them power in silence, alright?
The woman you just saw's name is Zaria. She has been instrumental in organizing and leading protests across the city of Little Rock and instrumental in keeping them peaceful and calm. She has been emphatically telling us since the beginning that we are to remain calm, we are not to hurt anyone, we're not to break anything, we're not to do damage. If you're watching this video, I can only assume you're here looking for the truth. And if you really are looking for the truth, then I hope you're prepared for it to conflict with your worldview. My name is Olivia. I'm 21 years old, I live in Little Rock, Arkansas, and I'm tired. My body aches, my head hurts, my lungs hurt. It's 4:30 a.m., and I've been tear gassed 3 times in the past 48 hours, and I haven't even seen the worst of it. Above all that, my heart hurts. We live in a world where it's become necessary for me to spend my weekend getting shot at and tear gassed by the North Little Rock, and Arkansas State Police Departments because somewhere along the line, we decided that black people were second-class citizens and that their lives and deaths don't matter. Police brutality is not new, especially for black people in America. As a matter of fact, our earliest police force's main job was to control enslaved people. Fast forward a few years and their main job is enforcing Jim Crow laws. A few more and they're on the front lines of the civil rights movement, and not in a good way. When you come to now, we're filming them murdering innocent black men, women, and children on the streets, and they're not facing any consequences for it. Let's just take a second to acknowledge the fact that happy people don't protest. We all know this. It's pretty much common sense, but it's something we all seem to forget when the people who are protesting aren't white. You may be thinking to yourself right now, but Olivia, I'm okay with peaceful protests. I just am not here for all the violence. And in that case, let me tell you a little bit about what happened on May 31st, 2020 at the Arkansas State Capitol in Little Rock. Around 200 people of all races gathered at the Capitol to hold a peaceful protest. We had signs, we were doing chants, and our organizers were being very, very clear that everything was to remain calm. We actually held an 8-minute long moment of silence, which, if you ask me, is about as peaceful as you could possibly get. Of all those people, only a very small number of them wanted to escalate things. Like, think about 10 people. And of those 10 people, only one person actually did something. And as soon as it became clear that property was being damaged, the protesters came and drug the person away from what they were doing and made it clear that if they wanted to be violent, if they wanted to escalate things, this was not the place to do it. They needed to go somewhere else. As time went on, we began to hear reports of a caravan of about 60 people on motorcycles coming to protest our protest. But we also knew that there were police blockades on all sides of us, so we figured we would at least be safe from them. And we were safe from those people. I never saw a single one of them, but who we weren't safe from is the police that were there. Shortly after this, we received word again that the police were planning to move in on us, and in retrospect, I'm not even sure why. We were being peaceful. We were chanting occasionally, but nothing really. We were staying in one area. Nothing was escalating. We were keeping it together. The organizers made contact with the police and informed them that anyone who was sitting on the steps of the Capitol was trying to be as peaceful as humanly possible. They weren't chanting, they weren't standing. Everyone was literally just sitting there and holding their signs. The organizers then told the rest of us who weren't sitting down to form a human blockade in between those who were sitting down and the police officers who had started arriving all in full riot gear, all armed to the teeth. We were all operating under the assumption that the people who were sitting on the steps of the Capitol would be completely safe. After all, they were peacefully protesting, right? And that's what everybody's been wanting us to do all along, is peacefully protest. Shortly after all of this, the police began to form a line that reached from the building across the street from the Capitol all the way up to the building, and they started advancing towards us. There were a few people in between the human blockade and the police who were yelling things and probably trying to instigate, but most of us were telling them to shut up and go back. To be clear, there was a very big distinction in between those who were being rambunctious, the human blockade, and those who were sitting on the steps of the Capitol. Those of us who had formed the human blockade all had our hands up and were chanting at the police, "Don't shoot," over and over again as loudly as we possibly could. And you can probably guess what happened next.
Don't shoot! 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 Don't shoot!
Oh shit, they got tear gas. Back up.
Throughout all this, the police were yelling things at us through a completely unintelligible speaker, and people were actually yelling back "We can't understand what you're saying, we don't know what you're saying." But then they started firing tear gas canisters and crowd control grenades at those of us who were forming the human blockade, and about 30 seconds later they were aiming for the center of the group of people who were just sitting quietly on the steps of the Capitol. This is absolutely unacceptable behavior on the part of the police officers who were there. These people were sitting quietly, they weren't yelling, they weren't screaming, they weren't even chanting, and they were met with riot control. After the police officers began firing on us, we all backed up pretty quick, but then came the rubber bullets. Thankfully, our incredible organizers had brought in a team of volunteer medics, and I'm so grateful for them, as well as the other protesters who put themselves in danger to make sure that nobody was getting hurt, and if someone was hurt, they were immediately taken out of the line of fire. Around this point in time, the police started saying what I think is, "This is an unlawful gathering, leave the premises immediately." But again, their speakers were virtually unintelligible, so I can't really be sure that's what they were saying.
Tear gassing people who were trying to peacefully protest in front of them. People did start trying to scatter, but the police officers still shot at them as they were running away. They would fire tear gas canisters and they would fire those crowd control grenades at them, at people who were trying to leave. We were trying to follow orders, but if you made too much of a move or poked your head up, you got shot at. Oh shit. Many people scattered, but those of us who did stand our ground, we were mostly either sitting or kneeling on the ground with our hands up, begging officers not to shoot. We were trying to control the tear gas as best we could using traffic cones, but that stuff spreads and it took a while for us to be able to breathe normally. Eventually, a small group of people moved up closer to the police line and knelt down on the ground and held their hands up and literally begged the officers to stop shooting. Those people had a crowd control grenade shot directly at them by the police. Around this time, we were able to make out over the loudspeakers that they were telling us that we had 30 minutes to clear the premises and anyone who stayed would be arrested. Also around this time, the National Guard began to arrive, and they were in their full combat fatigues and armed with what, to our knowledge, were actual guns with actual bullets, and they were authorized to shoot us. We started trying to get away, but they were still firing tear gas canisters and crowd control grenades at everyone who was running. And throughout all of this, our organizers had megaphones and were trying to communicate to police officers that we were peaceful, that we weren't trying to escalate anything, that we were not violent, none of us were armed. We were all just there to protest. But crowd control kept coming. They were using sonic weapons, firing tear gas left and right, throwing tear gas canisters, throwing grenades, and shooting rubber bullets at anyone who stepped out of line. We were defenseless, not a threat, and trying to comply with their orders, and they attacked us anyways. And really, that's the crux of the issue. They don't want us to protest peacefully, they want us to be silent. They want us to be complicit. They want us to just shut up and take it. They don't want anything to change. They want to hold on to their authority and their freedom from consequences, and that is unacceptable. So what do you do? For starters, my fellow white people watching this, listen. Open your eyes, your ears, your minds, and your hearts to the reality of what's going on around you. Actually start listening to what Black people have to say so that people like me don't have to say it. Hear Black voices and acknowledge the fact that their life looks very different from yours. And for everyone watching this, I want you to know that sharing stories and raising awareness is a really good thing. It's a good thing to do, but show up. Find protests and rallies around you. It is our responsibility as white people to use our privilege like that. Your silence is complicity, and if you're neutral in situations like this, you've chosen the side of the oppressor. To not speak up, to not act, is racist, and I don't care how many Black friends you have. And if you can't show up, donate. Donate to protests. We always need first aid supplies, water, milk, baking soda, and snacks. Or donate to organizations like the Black Lives Matter movement, the ACLU, or local bail funds for protesters in your area. And if you can't do any of that either, share and sign petitions. Call your lawmakers. Call out your friends and relatives who make racist comments. Don't be silent. And the most important aspect of being an ally is magnifying the voices of Black people. Thank you for watching this video. Please feel free to contact us if you have any questions or you want to know how to get involved or you just want more information. We'll have links posted in the description for ways you can reach us. Also, we will be providing links for charities and organizations you can donate to. Lastly, a massive thank you to the organizers, protesters, and medics across the nation. We see you, we hear you, and we support you.
You're my brother, and I'm going to protect y'all, and we should be able to love each other. They already get enough from us.
We can stop this oppression. We can take this system down if we unite. This is what they're scared of. This is why they're sitting there. They're called their chaos makers. Because they're scared of us doing this. And we're going to keep on doing this. And we're going to keep on making them angry. You want to know why? I'm tired. I'm tired. I don't want to be tired anymore. I don't want to live in a state of fear. I don't want to walk on eggshells. If I'm going to walk on anything, it's just green grass.
Give them a reason to turn them rubber bullets into real bullets.
And it's at a point now where even when we do what's right, we still don't get treated fairly. Arkansas of course, we know it's well documented, has several, if not more than several, white supremacist and alt-right groups here. And we're one of 4 states that doesn't have a hate crime legislation here. No black legislators have passed any, and none of the white legislators have passed any. So that goes to show you that even though we're out here saying Black Lives Matter, to those that make the laws, we don't. So to show them that we aren't afraid of them and that we will fight for our rights. I appreciate all you being out here willing to sacrifice your freedom, and hopefully hopefully it doesn't happen, but your life also, because I mean it can happen. So I just want to say thank you. If you find any moment of weakness, look to one of us and know that we're still standing out here. They're gunning at us. They see you, but they're gonna gun at us. So I thank you all for standing in line with us, and I hope that if it gets to that, you all will be standing right beside us throwing fists too.